At Rubberband, we empower each other through positivity, kindness, and practical advice. Join a community of thousands of peers who understand the unique challenges you face. Rubberband. Company agnostic, low ego, high empathy, always supportive.
Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of Rubberband, the Recruitment Chinwag, where we share honest conversations with the people behind the talent industry. This is a special episode, the first of a new chapter for the show. Longtime host Eden Haddock has stepped back to focus on exciting new work commitments, and over the coming months, you'll hear from a rotating lineup of passionate hosts volunteering to keep the mics hot and this community connected. My name is Martin Hill, and I'll be thrilled to be hosting today's conversation. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us. This land has long been a place of teaching, storytelling, and connection, and we honour the enduring spiritual relationship of the Noongar people have with the country. Now, on to today's episode. We're joined by a brilliant guest to kickstart this new season, Kris Clelland, founder of Recruitment X. Kris is one of those people who's worn nearly every hat in the industry, from recruiter, business owner, public speaker, and now RecTech founder. His journey through people industry has been anything but linear, and today he's building something designed to make recruiters' lives easier, more human, and more impactful. Kris, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, Martin. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good. Thanks for joining.
That's all right. Thanks for inviting me back on. I was a huge advocate of Eden, and I was on Rubberband on one or two occasions when Eden was sort of flying the flag. So yeah, thanks for inviting me back.
No problem at all. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to join the podcast on two separate occasions as well, and they're big boots to fill. So I think there's about five of us stepping in to try and take over for what he was doing on a weekly basis. So it's pretty exciting and also quite daunting at the same time. So appreciate you putting your hand up as our first guest of the new season.
That's all right. Anytime.
So diving into it, just going back into the traditional format that everyone knows and loves is going into the origin, so where it all began. So tell me a little bit about your early life, so where you grew up and what kind of environment shaped you into the person you are today.
Yeah, so like for those who can understand the accent on a podcast, the accent's definitely not Australian. I am somewhat of a Scozzy. I do travel more now with my Aussie passport than my British. I'm originally from west coast of Scotland. Spent a lot of my university days and early career in Glasgow and throughout Europe, but predominantly based in Glasgow. So the accent is probably more Glaswegian than where I originally sort of grew up. From a career standpoint, I did a degree in engineering. Did a little bit of pre-sales technical solution work for IT distribution channels, so building servers, storage, networking solutions. And then I came to a crossroads pretty quickly when I realised that having a sales background as well as engineering, there was more money to be made in selling the product as well as building it. So I kind of wore a dual hat for a little while, helping the pre-sales technical solution guys build the solutions. And also selling it onto clients. So I came from an account management and sales semi-leadership background prior to sort of finishing university. Upon arriving in Australia, like many Brits or many expats in general, the quickest and easiest way for me to stay in the country was through recruitment. I was poached into the recruitment realms by Michael Page, who taught me the 360-degree recruitment ropes. But coming from a pretty strategic and senior sales leadership background or sales management background, I found it just a tiny bit too tactical of the in-out of clients coming to you only when they needed you. And that sort of sparked the initial parts of my career in talent acquisition. I was lucky enough to help a small technical consultancy who predominantly worked across the testing spaces. So testing in QA and engineering, set up TA and HR for the first time. We grew into 6 new countries, expanded the business across the globe. And then I moved on to a few big enterprise organizations like Wipro and Amazon / Amazon Web Services, but I kept myself grounded a little bit in between those roles with startup scale up. So I helped the Zipco team and Larry Diamond and Pete scale across the globe and build their people, HR, and talent teams with the many acquisitions they went through, US, UK, Middle East, India, and then back to Australia. And then the last sort of few years of being agnostic advisory and consulting before, and I will correct maybe one thing that you said. I'm not part of the original founding team at Recruitment X. The platform has actually been built over the past 2 to 2.5 years. I was aware of the product. I got my hands dirty with it and helped with a lot of product development enhancements and sort of turning 5 clicks into 1 click and making things more automated than they were before. And then they approached me because of my knowledge in the HR and talent tech space to join them as CEO. So the guys that are on the team do call me a founder or a founding member, but I can't take any sort of credit for what's happened with the technology. So yeah, that's I guess the end to end with me.
Sounds like quite a journey, and sounds like another person that's sort of fallen into a recruitment type moment, which seems to be many of us in the industry.
There's not too many that choose it.
No. And thinking back to that career in the early years of recruitment, what were some of the biggest challenges, and how did you sort of learn to navigate those?
Yeah, look, I don't think it was necessarily a challenge. I think I approached recruitment from a staffing and recruitment agency standpoint with Michael Page a lot differently to a few people that were on the floor. A lot of people took it very much as a core sales role, learning the craft while servicing the clients, but not necessarily being sort of an SME in their area, certainly for the initial parts of recruitment until they sort of learned or had more lived experience in the fields. I approached it very much from I've just come from selling high-tech, multi-million pound and multi-million euro solutions into CTOs, CIOs, heads of technical departments. So I approached recruitment like that. The director that I worked under at the time, Corinne Cheeseman, very much taught me the ropes of the 360-degree recruitment, or I quite often called it 320-degree recruitment, because she spoke recruitment and I spoke tech. So we went in front of CIOs and CTOs, and I was able to sort of articulate the solutions that their teams were going through, not necessarily the people that they needed for the solutions. And then we reverse engineered it into the people that we would then hire for those teams. So like I approached it a little bit differently. I had some great successes, some failures, as you do in recruitment, when clients don't get back to you for weeks and they needed a role 4 weeks ago, but you've sent them the perfect people and you hear nothing back. So that was the challenges, the tactical or transactional nature of the staffing industry was kind of what maybe sort of 0.1 degree chipped away at me, but didn't necessarily discredit me or dishearten me from being successful. And then a client of mine approached me to say, hey, we've just brought in a head of HR. We don't have a head of recruiting or a head of talent acquisition. We don't have a team yet. We've not got an ATS. We've not got an HRIS. So you guys would be building from very much the ground up. And that seemed like a more strategic move for me. That's kind of where, like, no offense here to Michael Page, because the training that the big recruitment businesses put into their employees is incredible. But that's kind of where it switched from being a job to being a career for me. And I've got so many mates like you, Martin, who are still in staffing, and I don't think some of them will ever get out because they love it, because they've moved up through the ranks and into senior roles and become more operational, more strategic, more leadership focused, more thought leaders, but they still do hands-on recruiting every single day. I just think the talent acquisition space versus the recruiting space was a little bit more suited to me at that point in my career. But then right from the get-go, I reached out to all of the recruitment agencies that I knew to help me, because in most organizations, even with Amazon, the talent acquisition teams were tiny and the headcount targets were sort of above 20,000 per annum. And with a team of less than 100 recruiters, you just couldn't hire that volume. So I reached out to MSPs and RPOs and agencies to short, medium, and long term help me hire as much as I could. I was never a talent leader that turned my nose up to agencies when I had been in it. and a lot of talent leaders do that. I'm sure you're aware of that. I'm sure you've been in contact with some of them who are like, we don't need agency help. We can do this all by ourselves. I've always appreciated where I came from in recruitment. It kept me in the country. It got me a visa. It got me PR and now citizenship in the country. There's always going to be challenges in every role you do, but challenges always come and go. There's always a silver lining, and there's always a next day. Yeah, like I could go over the challenges all day long, but I always like to be pessimistic, which is probably not very Scottish of me, but yeah.
It's great to sort of get to that point where you can leverage the strategy and really have that tangible impact on a company or a project, and really see the companies, change because of your tangible impact with the recruitment aspect. So I think that's what keeps people in it once they get to that point where they can really make a visual change to an organization and see them grow, help them staff up, staff down, redeploy people. It really sort of makes a difference, I believe.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly.
And I know that you've built quite a strong presence in the recruitment community over the recent years as well. I've seen you do a lot of presentations and hosting events. And when did that start becoming important to you?
Like I think even from Michael Page days, it was pretty important. I was used to taking some of the largest organizations in Europe out for like lavish lunches and dinners, and sort of wining and dining them in order to sort of keep on their good books. There's no point in sugarcoating it. But I think the event space was something that I carried right through recruitment. I was very hands-on and involved in the executive lunches and breakfasts and stuff that we did at Michael Page. We then used to run global boot camps at Planet Testing, where we would bring people in from overseas to do an 8 or 12-week boot camp to then potentially get roles with us. So I was always involved in bringing people into the right spaces and connecting the dots, while trying to remain as agnostic as I possibly could. At Amazon, we created the Engineering Learning Series, which was bringing engineers into the business, bringing engineering leaders and teaching engineers how to use AWS tools on the AWS platform with AWS programming. So it seemed like we were doing all of the engineers a favor, but ultimately what we were creating was a little bit of a snippet or a chance to see what it's like to work at Amazon. And then post the 2 or 3 day events or 2 or 3 evening events, we would run an entire technical examination to see what everyone had picked up. And we would hire people from the most experienced architects to literally people who had never programmed or coded in their life until those 3 days, who aced the technical examination at the end of 2 days and one night. So there was always that intrinsic thing of, how do we be a little bit more intuitive? How do we make this fun for everyone? How do we show people that what they're doing and they might have fallen out of love with at some point, we can reignite the flame and allow them to enjoy what it is they're doing again? And that then went on to most of the career moves that I've had, but especially the last sort of two years with talent partners, where I was running sort of events, workshops, masterclasses, summits and conferences and award ceremonies to only sort of director level and above, which made the conversation in the room way more strategic. And like, I've genuinely in the last 2 years gained now what I would call some of my closest mates from only the last 24-month period, just from getting people in a room and being able to be vulnerable and share some of the challenges, but solve some of the challenges together as a group. And yeah, look, I'm still speaking about that with a few of my colleagues in the industry right now, about how do we get people back into a room like I was doing then. And I mean, it was only 5 minutes ago, so it's not a difficult thing to replicate, but people are eager to be in incubation rooms like that, where they go back with 20 actionable insights that immediately the next day they can take back to their teams and start to implement. So yeah, look, I love the hosting piece. I love being in front of people. I love being a sponge. I've got a digital notepad that even when I'm hosting summits and conferences, I go back with 20 pages of notes, and I then start to de-jumble and demystify the stuff that I've taken off of people that have been on the stage beside me. As I'm asking them questions, I'm taking down their answers. So yeah, look, I wouldn't say I'm a natural learner, but I'm someone who's very curious, which has ultimately landed me on the inside of the tech realms, which, like, there's multiple people that will listen to this, or that when this is posted, will listen to it perhaps, and they'll say, we never thought you would go vendor side. And look, I've had that comment from probably 300 people in the past 8 weeks since I joined Recruitment X. But if I had a tool that was as intuitive and as intelligently built as Recruitment X when I was a talent leader, God, I would have been so much more advisory led as a department in talent acquisition than we were being tactical, transactional, going through the daily admin. And that's what's ultimately sort of ended me here, that I've come across a product that doesn't have a single global competitor end to end, which in my entire talent acquisition career, absolutely unheard of. In rec tech, TA tech, or HR tech, to come across something that no one else has done to the level that the guys have done it, and no one has done it at the exact point of that first 20% of the job creation to shortlist, is an opportunity that I might never get the chance to dive into again.
And that leads me into the next question. So let's talk about your transition. When did the idea for getting involved with Recruitment X start to form, and how did you become involved?
Yeah, so look, it wasn't actually my idea. I'd like to say that I poked the bear or prompted the conversation. The guys approached me back in January, February to partner with me to run a few small sort of leadership workshops to both staffing leaders and also in my audience to the TA and HR leaders side, just to try and get the product in to more people's hands and allow them to see what, by automating the parts of the process that every recruiter hates anyway, what you could give back in productivity, time savings, and cost savings. They very commendably gave me full access to the tool for me to have a sort of play around. And I said to them, I said, be aware, I'll try and break the tool by shoving so much stuff through it. And I did. I went back to the team with a few product development ideas, and the CTO and the co-founder, Sean, reached back out to me a week later and said, hey, can you log back in? We've made all of those changes. And I was like, what? In a week? I gave you literally a toilet roll full of stuff. And they were so nimble and so agile and had went and made all of the changes. And then a couple of months later, I was at the point of sort of parting ways with the partnership that I had through my own business, Clelland & Co. and Talent Partners. And the co-founder, Sean, who owns the recruitment agency, reached out at seriously the most opportunistic time he possibly could have, to say, we're in the process now where we need a CEO who knows both sides of the industry, has got huge networks and knows tech. And we can't think of anyone more aligned in the Australian market than yourself, which, I mean, that's a huge compliment in itself. I'm pretty sure I did the Scottish thing and didn't take the compliment and told them to stop. But the conversations then continued around what they were looking from my experience, how they would want me to be involved. And yeah, look, a couple of the investors, we had pre-seed investment before the product was even launched. We had paying customers before the product was even launched, which you don't often see. And one of the investors a few weeks ago called me a chief everything officer, which I used to call myself a chief espresso officer, because the only thing I was really good at was making coffee. But I don't mind chief everything officer, because in a small, nimble business of 10 to 15 people, you have to be in everything to everyone some of the time. And that's now led me to helping the guys promote and enhance and build and evolve what is probably one of the coolest tools that I've seen in a long time. I've just come off a call prior to this, Martin, with a global influencer in the HR tech space who's based in South Africa, who's spoken on stages all over the world, like myself. And she wants to put us on a platform for completely free of charge, because she can't believe what she's seen in the way that the product operates. And she's been in the back end sandbox and development environments and test environments for probably over 1,000 HR and talent tech products.
Fantastic.
And that was the same as me when I got access to it. I was like, God, I wish I had this 5 years ago when I had a team of over a few hundred recruiters in Wipro. Like it would have made us seem like the smartest and most intelligent people in every conversation, which I'm not saying that they weren't, or we weren't at that point in time, but it would have certainly sped up a lot of processes, taking fully analysed, customised shortlists from a week to 22 seconds. Like the time that would have saved with some of the roles that we had, where we would have got 500-600 applications, and it would also have allowed us to get back to every single candidate with either a positive or I wouldn't say negative, a constructive feedback on the role. I've spoken to Steve Gard as part of the Circleback initiative, and Steve loves the fact that every single outreach is completely customized based on the person's experience versus the job description and the additional content that you put into the tool. And I think it's important from a candidate experience perspective, but there's a lot of little things the tool does which aren't the shiny, amazing parts of the tool, but it makes a difference. So yeah, look, I'm excited to be behind the wheel of something in tech.
It's great when you can get a creative pursuit and you see that excitement come across your face when you're talking about it, both the recruitment aspect wise and technology, and combining the two with sales. I think it's pretty exciting, and hearing you sort of present on the platform as well. It's something definitely that I think is game changing for recruiters, especially just for getting that time back in the day, which is, I know, the biggest thing. Clicking less, using less platforms, and doing things more efficiently. So it's exciting to see, and I wish you all success with it. And in your words, what is Recruitment X, and what sort of problem is it looking to solve for recruiters and talent acquisition teams?
Yeah, good question. Recruitment X takes the boring, mundane tasks of candidate stack ranking or candidate screening, and also, which I know I've shown you a little while ago, also takes the pre-screening calls, which is the most conversational and realistic AI I think I've spoken to all like the past 24 months. And it takes those entire processes and condenses it into a few minutes. I had one organization put 1,200 resumes through it the other week, and look, that allowed us to develop the platform in areas that we realized would break if anything more went through it with a single user. But it takes everything from screening, sifting through a resume with a quick yes or no, fully optimized and fully customized summaries of the candidate, each candidate, whether that's 50, whether it's 400, whether it's 5,000, and gives you fully downloadable summaries of each candidate and why their alignment to the role and to everyone else in that bucket is aligned or not aligned to the role. And then you can set up the AI-led phone screen part as an additional feature. We probably only have about 30% of people using the platform that use that function, which I think is a shame, because I think that particular function, how hard we've worked with the large language models and the voices. I mean, the voice is so Australian, it's frightening, and it's like speaking to a person. I think that will very soon become the leveler, and it will become a joint sort of shiny part of the product. But it ultimately takes the first 25% of candidate stack ranking, everything from initial screening to advanced screening, to pre-screening calls, which you can often try a candidate 50 times for, and you can set the AI-led phone screen to retry, and automates it into a few minutes. So what we're literally doing is taking 99.8% of the time out of those initial sort of 25% of the sort of candidate stack ranking processes or screening processes, and automating it, and then leaving the in-person interviews for where I believe for the next maybe decade we won't have bots or robots or AI take over until we get to the point where AI has got fully fledged emotions, which, look, I'm hoping that's at least a decade away. I might be wrong. It might be 2 or 3 years round the corner with the way that AI is going. But we leave the human part ultimately to the human, which was a big draw card for me in being interested in joining the organization. But yeah, ultimately from job description to shortlist is kind of the part of the process that we automate.
Yeah, amazing. And I definitely agree. Keeping the recruiter involved in the process with the interviewing, and from my own experience the last couple of weeks running back-to-back interviews and really trying to assess candidates for suitability against the job. I think that's an important part of the decision making and the strategic advisory, and just really getting to know your candidates that are coming through for the job applications for best fit. So I think that's definitely an important piece to keep humanized. And how are you finding with the transition into AI and the pushback in terms of auto screening with AI, with some of the recent discussions in the media lately? How are you finding getting people comfortable with the automated screening part of the process?
I think when you show most organizations and teams that it is ultimately the part, if you asked 5,000 recruiters, do you enjoy sifting through 120 resumes per role, giving a quick yes or no, and then fully analysing, stack ranking, putting a shortlist together, customizing a paragraph to a hiring team or a client if you're in staffing or recruitment? I think you would maybe get 1 or 2 out of 5,000 that would say, yes, I enjoy that. I had an organisation a few weeks ago say exactly that. My team actually enjoy the screening process of going through resumes. And I said, look, I'm really sorry if this seems like too much of a hard truth, because I'm sure your consultants are amazing. But if your team are telling you that they enjoy that, it's because it fills time. I can't think of a single person that's in any sort of recruiting or talent acquisition role that would tell you that they genuinely enjoy the mundane task of going through resumes. And I think that's a hard truth. By taking that part of the process out and giving 99% of the time back, ultimately you're opening up the realms for recruiters or talent acquisition professionals to have to work on business engagement, relationship management internally, stakeholder management. If you're in staffing, business development, cold calling, internal and external client relationship management and growth. I think you're adding parts into a process that a lot of people don't enjoy. And I said that to her. I said the only reason that they're telling you that they enjoy that is because those are the parts that are still keeping them look busy. And I said I might be 100% wrong, but I can't imagine I'm very wrong. And she was very quick to agree with me. I think being on the inside of tech has been eye-opening for me. Like, I've always been in tech industries, 20 plus years of tech industries for big organizations like Amazon and Wipro and fintech with Zipco and testing and quality assurance with Planet Testing. But I mean, being on the inside, it's allowed me to realize the potential of agentic AI, generative AI, machine learning, large language models, and which has then forced me to go out after 50 conversations on, oh my goodness, you've saved me this much time. And when I backtrack that or reverse engineer that into the hours that are spent and the average hourly rate for my recruitment team, here's the amount that you've actually saved me, and now we're more productive. And you mentioned advisory led, like talent acquisition teams are saying we can now truly business partner because we've got more time back. That then forced me to go out and code, download Python, download Streamlit, download GitHub, and create apps for ROI for the first time ever. And look, the shocking surprise to me was that you can teach generative and agentic AI to code for you. And the very first version of my app, my ROI calculator, ran first time perfectly. And like, I wish something had taken a photo of me from my screens. I was like a kid in a sweet shop, and now I've got completely obsessed with refining it and advancing it and creating like gatekeeper parts to the portal where it only gives you half of the ROI calculations and then asks you for your contact details before it gives you the rest. Like, I've played around with so much of it, and look, I haven't retaught myself how to code. I've simply used the AI products that are in the market today intuitively to help me get to where I was. So look, being on the inside of tech, I don't think I would have ever done some of the stuff I've done in the past 8 weeks without being every single day in conversations with AI engineers, architects, developers, UI devs. Like, all of those people every day have sparked a little sort of techie nerd inside me and allowed me to create some pretty cool shit for the first time in my life, which is pretty cool. Be curious, everyone. Be curious, play around. Don't just prompt engineer like you're speaking to a child. Like, learn how to prompt AI properly, and you'll be astounded with what you can get out of the other side. I've loved it. Like, I genuinely have enjoyed it.
Amazing. Yeah, staying inquisitive is just so important, just to really trying to understand the pain points and problems. And it sounds like you're just leaning heavily into that at the moment, which is fantastic to hear as well. And in terms of what sort of final message would you share with someone listening today if they're in the early part of their recruitment career or thinking of going down the technology pathways themselves?
Yeah, look, I think I've probably mentioned both of these, including like sort of 20 seconds ago. The first one for me is, if you go into something and you don't enjoy it, if you've got a true leader and not a manager above you, or true leaders and not managers above you, don't be scared to tell a leader that you don't think that what you're doing right there and then is suitable. Is there other roles within the organization that your skill sets might perhaps be better suited to? Do what you love every single day. No day ever becomes a work day or a school day. And I do mean that genuinely. I helped people go from talent acquisition in Amazon to one of them is now a senior solutions architect on the technical side of Amazon Web Services because he was double degree qualified, curious as hell about tech, and didn't see recruitment as the be all and end all. So I helped him move into areas that he didn't think was possible. The other part is, like as you said, be curious, play around with stuff. Failure is not a negative. There are very few things in your entire life that you ever do first time and ace. Hence my face when the calculator worked. But it wasn't me that coded it. It was AI that coded it for me. Be curious, play around, fail fast and recover faster.
Fantastic advice. The technology is moving so quickly now and evolving so fast, and the price is at such a good price point for what you get out of it. It's an absolute steal. Learning the ChatGPTs or the other variations that are out there at the moment. Definitely a big advocate of playing around and just asking questions and letting it be the smarter person in the room and teaching you something new, which is great advice.
Yep.
And where can listeners find you and connect or try to find out more information or to even test out Recruitment X?
Yeah, look, I'd be very surprised if there's anyone listening who isn't already connected with me and is sick of my 20 LinkedIn posts a week or comments or tags or whatever. Everyone can find me on LinkedIn. If you do want to email me, it's Kris with a K .Clelland @recruitmentx.ai. I'm more than happy to give anyone who reaches out to me personally or comes through yourself, Martin, a completely free demo, which is 10-15 minutes for me to show you the platform end to end. I can even run through the ROI calculator that I said I created. I'm more than happy to give as many people right now as much free access as we can to help us show us where we should be going with the tiny tweaks that are still left in the product that need tweaking and show people the benefits for themselves. But yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, email, whatever's easiest.
Great. Thanks again for joining us on the first episode of the new season of the Recruitment Chinwag on Rubberband. And thank you all to the listeners for tuning in to Rubberband, the recruitment network for all. If you found today's conversation helpful, share it with your team or network and stay tuned for more voices from across the recruitment community and our various new hosts.